Pali, which is begins on page 18. Yoso Bhagava Arahant Samma Sambuddho Swakato Yena Bhagavata Dhammo Supatipanno Yasa Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho Dhammayam Bhagavantam Sadhammam Sasangham Imehi Sakarehi Yataraham Aropitehi Abhipujayama Sadhuno Bhante Bhagava Suchira Parini Bhutopi Pachima Janata Nukamba Manasa Yine Sakare Dugatapana Karabhute Patiganhatu Amhakanti Karatan Hitaya Sukaya Araham Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddham Bhagavantam Abhivademi. Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami. Supatipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho Sangham Namami. Handamayam Bodhasa Bhagavato Pumbhaganam Bankaram Karomase. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Andamayam Buddhana Satinayam Karomase. Tango Pana Bhagavantam Evam Kalayano Kitisado Abugato Iti Piso Bhagava Araham Samma Sambuddho Vijajarana Samhano Sugato Lokavidu Anuttaro Purisadhamma Sarati Sata Deva Manusana Buddho Bhagavati. Andamayam Buddha Dikitim Karomase. Buddha Varahanda Varata Diguna Biyuto Sudha Vinyana Karuna Hisamagatato Bodhisiyo Sujanatam Kamalam Vasuro Vanda Mahanta Maranam Sirasa Jinetam Bodhoyo Sirenaham Buddha Sahasamita Sova Buddho Me Samiki Saro Buddho Dukkha Sagata Charitata Charita Same Buddha Saham Niyate Misarira Jivitam Jitam Vandanto Hancharisami Buddha Seva Subodhitam Nati Me Saranam Anyam Buddho Me Saranam Varam Etena Sachavachena Vadeyam Sadhu Sasane Buddham Me Vandamane Yam Punyam Pasutam Gita Sabebiyam Parayame Mahesam Tasate Jasa
Andamayam Dhammanusatinayam Karomase
Swagato Bhagavata Dhammo Sanditiko Akariko Ehipasiko Opanaiko Pachatam Veditavo Vinyuriti
Andamayam Dhamma Vigiting Karomase
Swakatata Diguna Yoga Vasena Seyo Yomagapaka Pariyati Vimoga Bedo Dhammo Kuloka Patana Tatadahidai Vandamaham Tamaram Varadam Mametam Dhammo Yosabapanina Saranam Kemanutamam Buddhyanusatitanam Vandamitam Sirenaham Dhamma Sahasamita Sovadhammo Me Samiki Saro Dhammo Dukkha Sagata Charitata Charita Same Dhamma Saham Niyate Misarira Jivitam Jitam Vandanto Hancharisami Dhamma Seva Sudhammatam Nati Me Saranam Anyam Dhammo Me Saranam Varam Etena Sachavachena Vadeyam Sadhu Sasane Dhammam Me Vandamane Yam Punyam Pasutam Gita Sabebiyam Tarayame Mahesam Tasate Jasa
Andamayam Sangha Satinayam Karomase
Supatipanno bhagavato sāvaka saṅgho Ujjapatipanno bhagavato sāvaka saṅgho Nyāyapatipanno bhagavato sāvaka saṅgho Samijjipatipanno bhagavato sāvaka saṅgho Yadidam cattari purisa yugani nata purisa puggala Esa bhagavato sāvaka saṅgho Ahuneyo Bahuneyo Dakineyo Anjali Karaniyo Anuttaram Punyaketam Lokasati
Handamayam Sangha Vigitim Karomase
Sadhammajo Supatipati Guna Viyuto Sudha Viyo Ariya Puggala Sangha Seto Sila di Dhamma Pavara Sayakaya Cito Vanda Mahanta Mariyana Gadam Susudam Sangoyo Sabhapanina Saranam Kemamuttamam Tatiyanu Satitana Vandamitam Sirenaham Sangha Sahasamida Sovasangho Me Samikesaro Sangho Dukkha Sagata Charitata Chahita Same Sangha Sahaniyate Misarira Jevitam Chetam Vandanto Hang Charisam Sangha Sopatipanatan Nati Me Saranam Nanyam Sangho Me Saranam Varam Etena Sajavajena Vadeyam Sadhu Sasane Sangham Me Vandamane Layam Punyam Pasudam Gita Sabe Piyantarayame Maesam Tasate Jasa being the new moon nights, so opportunity for the lay support team or anybody else who'd like to request the 8 precepts. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang saranang gacchami. Dhammang saranang gacchami. Sanghang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami. Dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi buddhang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami. Ti saranat kamanang nittitang. Panatipata veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from taking the life of any living creature. Adinadana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from taking that which is not given. Abrahmacharya veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from any intentional sexual activity. Musawada veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from lying. Sura meraya maja pamadatana veramani sikkhapadang samadhyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from consuming intoxicating drink and drugs that lead to carelessness. Vikala bhojana veramani sikkhapadang samadhyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from eating at inappropriate time. Nacha gita vadita visukha dasana mala ganda vilepana dharana mandana vibhusanatana veramani sikkhapadang samadhyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from entertainment, beautification, entertainment, beautification, and adornment. Uchasayana mahasayana veramani sikkhapadang samadhyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from lying on a high or a luxurious sleeping place. Imani atta sikkhapadani samadhyami. Imani atta sikkhapadani silena sugating yanti. Silena bhoga sampada, silena nibbutting yanti, tasma silang vitsota ye. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. So we're in the last few weeks of this winter retreat. And hopefully it's been a good opportunity for us to turn our attention more inward and awaken a little more to the workings of the mind. Be aware of more our mind states, to understand them and know what's worth cultivating, and know what's better to let go of. And just considering how we're all sort of different in our characters and how we like to practice. So maybe there's one extreme where we get very attached to some sort of peaceful state. And we don't want anything to interrupt that. We don't want to engage with anything. We just want to hold on to the peaceful state. And then, some people maybe, they like a bit more, engagement and a bit of discussion and things. A bit more outward going. So, inward going or outward going, just knowing our character, isn't it? But the way I reflect is that the fulfillment of practice is not to be too introverted, not to be dependent on external things, not to be too extroverted. And to develop a quality of awareness that can embrace both, external things and also internal. So it's not hiding away from the world, trying to get away from interactions with people and situations, but it's knowing, how we respond to those situations, sort of awareness that's also aware of our reactions. So, knowing ourselves, do we get so absorbed into sights and sounds, tastes and touches that we lose this inward awareness of the mind? We get absorbed into things. We can get absorbed into a train of thought, but not really aware of, where the thoughts are coming from. Or we're just trying to hold on to some inner experience. So, the Buddha encourages us to be willing to experience. That's how we learn. So on like on one occasion, a Brahmin came to the Buddha, and the Buddha asked him, "How does your teacher teach you?" What the Buddha said, the development of the spiritual faculties. And the Brahmin student replied, "Oh, our teacher teaches not to see things, not to hear things. To get away from the sensory world." And the Buddha's response to that was that if that was how you develop your faculties, then a blind and a deaf person would have develop their spiritual faculties. And then the Buddha was asked, "Well, how do you practice then?" And the Buddha said, "I see things, and agreeable and unagreeable things arise in the mind because of that seeing, but I don't hold on to them, and they fall away into peacefulness, into equanimity." And the same for sights, sounds, tastes, touches, and also for mind objects too, the different mind states. So the Buddha experiences these things and he notices reactions, but the mind gone beyond holding on to them through the cultivation of mindfulness and wisdom. And he describes the way it's developed for him that it's like a drop of water falling onto a hot pan, a red hot pan, that it just instantly dissolves. So that's what the Buddha would call the fulfillment of the practice. And the ideal solitude, a mind that doesn't keep company with craving, hatred or delusion. So maybe we do experience a sort of peacefulness, like the peaceful mind is sometimes described as a lake, a pond that's just still, calm, quite pleasant. But then something drops in, and there's ripples. So this is like just the way sensory contact is. We see something, it brings up a reaction. So that's nature. Ripples will come. And if we just observe, these ripples just naturally settle down, and the lake comes back to its natural stillness. But I think what we tend to do is ripples come, and we want the peaceful lake, so we try to bash out the waves, and we create more. So when to get rid of something, we push down the ripples to get rid of them, and we create more. So that's the skill we have to develop, is learning just to observe these reactions, be more accepting of them, and just developing the skill of watching them cease. And then the mind goes back to its natural peacefulness. But at first we do try to get rid of, we try to hold on to this peaceful stillness, and anything that comes up, we try to get rid of it. But that's something just we have to learn to experience, how to just be more accepting, allowing things to come and go. Quite a few years ago now, I was resident at our monastery in New Zealand, and I've been a monk for about 6 years, and we just finished our some retreat, a community retreat, and I was feeling quite peaceful. quite a pleasant environment there and nice retreat. And we had a friend in the valley, the lady vicar of the local church. And she used to often come up and talk to Ajahn Viradhamma, who was the abbot. We had quite a nice relationship with this vicar. And she invited us to some sort of festival day at the church. And just, to be more friendly and make some contact with the locals. We accepted. But the thing was, Ajahn Viradhamma wasn't available to go. So he asked me to go. Now, I don't know if, one of the greatest fears is fears of public speaking. And I was a sixth Vassa monk, I wasn't used to giving talks. If I'd hardly done it, anything like this. But Ajahn Viradhamma said it'd be nice if you would go. And it was only like a 5 or 10 minute talk at in the church. So, the night before, I'm sat feeling, still, having peaceful from the retreat. And I started to think, what should I say? Should I say this? Maybe I should say that. Or maybe I should say this. And, this sense of sort of responsibility. I don't want to let the side down, And this sort of thinking built up quite some momentum. And, should I say this or should I say that? And I realised the same record was playing over and over again. And then there's some of the insight come that I've got quite anxious about this. I started off just thinking about it, in sort of clear way, but sort of triggered off the anxiety in the mind. And this is interesting to contemplate because the thoughts were all good about some Dharma teaching I had to give it, some reflection I had to give at a church. Thoughts were all good. But I realised the more I now planned the talk, the more anxious I got. Like the thinking, even though it was right thought, was feeding the anxiety. And it was building up momentum. So I realised I've got to, stop planning the talk. And so what I decided to do was to try to replace all the anxious thoughts with just simple thought. And also because, in my meditation I used the breath a lot. So I thought, well, now just breathe in with the thought, may I be well, and breathe out with the thought, and free from anxiety. So I started to try and do this. Instead of planning the talk, just keep this one thought in mind as I breathe in and out. And at first, I'd catch the odd breath, and then the mind would go off into planning a talk again. But over time, the anxiety lost its power because I wasn't feeding it. And the mind began to settle again with just on the thought, may I be well, may I be free from anxiety. And eventually things settled down and managed to get a bit of sleep that night. And managed to get through the talk. And this is just an example of, have to understand the mind and know the mind. Know what's underneath our thinking. Because even if the thoughts can be good, if it's coming from some anxiousness and worry, and often our thoughts of anxiousness and worry are quite good thoughts, concerns about things and people and the environment, whatever. But if we don't understand where they're coming from, we can just be feeding these mind states and eventually just take us over. So how to just be aware of the mind and know how to reflect in a way that allows any, defilements in the mind to cease. And, to do this, we have to really more turn our attention inward to understand these things. We're just absorbed in our thoughts, and we don't really see what's underneath. So, to actually broaden our awareness, just out of just the absorption to the thoughts, actually, broaden our awareness, feel the body, the effects on the body. Like anxiety, you feel it in the stomach, don't we? As a physical component to it. And a lot of our mind states do. Knowing the workings of the mind, how our mind states colour our world, let's say. Like the mind states are like lenses, different colours that we look through, like some of our will is probably like a red lens, and everything we see is negative. Looking through a red lens. So just to know that, know the mind. Not get caught into certain proliferations that tend to keep these hindrances, defilements going. And this is, part of what we have to learn. Maybe I've told this another story before, but this is around fear. And just on my first trip to Thailand, I arrived in Thailand and I had this trip on an overnight bus, and to go to the monastery in the northeast. And they play these movies on these overnight buses, and they put the monks on the front seat because they think that'll stop the bus from crashing. And you're right next to the movie screen. And this particular evening they were playing a movie called Friday the 13th, which is a horror movie. It's about some guy going around murdering these young people at a party. You can't, it's right in front of you, you sort of see it. Anyway, get to the monastery and jet-lagged after meal. I'm sleeping all afternoon. And it comes to the evening and I'm, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, I'm sort of still wide awake. And then the sense of, I'm in a strange place, in the forest, a monastery in Thailand, my first night there. A sense of fear comes up. And then from that fear comes the thought, maybe that man from Friday the 13th is out there. And this has really came up, for me. And for a moment it was quite believable. But knowing, having just some perspective on the mind, this is fear and this is the projections of fear. I didn't believe it. The sense of awareness of it was not, because you could be aware of it but not believing it. And because you didn't believe it, it lost its power, so the fear went. But if you don't have that perspective and get caught up in it, some of these mind states, if you can't really see them for what they are and get caught into the proliferations of them, it's a lot of what we call dukkha, isn't it? So it's the importance of just knowing the mind, knowing the way the mind colours our world. And that's, just comes from this awareness that we develop through meditation. And, knowing the mind, knowing its the proliferations that come from that mind state, not getting caught up in them. And, the more we develop that skill, these things don't last. And this is what we know. We know these things, if we don't get caught up into the certain proliferations, then this mind state will cease and come back to more peacefulness in the present moment. And I say the present moment because a lot of these mind states take us off into the realms of time, past and future. Remembering things from the past, projecting things into the future. No worries, anxieties, ill will, things happen from the past. Desire for something in the future that you've experienced in the past, craving for something. And that understanding becomes really clear how just if you don't get caught up in it, it just ceases and you come back to the peace of the present moment. Say the empty mind, where the thoughts of I am have naturally ceased. And not really through absorbing into the breath, absorbing into something, but just through letting go. And, for me that's what meditation ultimately is about. It's about, letting go. Nothing really you have to get, because really the peaceful mind's always there if we allow it to manifest, if we don't get caught up into the certain proliferations. The deathless is always there. The unconditioned is always there. You don't get the unconditioned. What you get is a condition. So the importance of just knowing the mind, having a sense of acceptance, of knowing, this is the mind state, this is the way the mind tends to proliferate, just know it what it is. We can come back to the body, or like an example I said about just keeping a certain reflection in mind. But if it's a skillful reflection, it tends to settle things. So if it's even Dharma, thinking Dhamma, but still things getting more stirred up, then maybe we have to turn our thoughts to something else. Just a simple thought. But of course, before we can know the mind, we have to be willing to experience it. And, what we experience in meditation, say we really do get to know our mind in meditation, say something like restlessness, say. Then of course, when we start to do things or interact, we can know it when it comes up when we're doing things too. Knowing the mind states we get to know in meditation, we can get to know them if they come up when we're doing things, when we're more engaged. And that's, very helpful. Especially, if the mind states tend to make us act or speak in unskillful ways, it's good to know that, isn't it? So if we get to know the mind through inward looking, then we keep that inward looking as we're doing things in a more spacious awareness. Then we know them as when they come up when we're doing things, interacting. And then, the possibility of not getting caught up in them, not acting, speaking on them, and allowing them to cease, even while we're still doing things. Now this is, a very skillful thing to develop, especially in conversations, because we get very absorbed into a conversation and sometimes we don't realise we're getting a bit heated up or something. or getting a bit frivolous and skillful. So it's good to see, as we're talking, also being aware of how's this conversation affecting the mind. Are we maintaining something skillful in the mind as we're conversing? So this ability to know the mind, letting go of the things that are unskillful in the mind, continues. Even when we're doing things, interacting. They're saying this sort of spacious awareness. And the Buddha gives a nice analogy about space. He said, in one teaching he said, make your mind like space. Because whatever comes into space, whether it's beautiful or ugly, pleasant or unpleasant, the space doesn't react to it. It just allows it to flow through. So that's what the Buddha said about, making the mind like space. Letting it flow through and coming back to the empty space. But sometimes we don't do that. We grab hold of the things that are coming through. Try to hold on to them, try to get rid of them. Rather than just allowing them to take the natural course, which is to cease. But, I just see the importance of accepting some of these mind states. I just see from my own experience, when I've learned to accept something, then it loses its grip. It doesn't tend to last long. And I don't, the tendency not to get up into, the thoughts that tend to keep that mind state going. And it is so interesting, how you see the world when that mind state's there, and how it looks when it's gone. Such a different perspective on things. And such a relief too when it's gone, just coming back to this clear knowing where there's wisdom. And the Buddha, the Four Noble Truths is about cessation, isn't it? About allowing things to cease. Understand the truth of cessation. When we allow defilements to cease in the mind. So that's why I've been, when I, on birthday cards used to write many happy returns. I tend to write, may you have many happy cessations. And maybe that's something people are afraid of, losing this sense of self. But, something you have to just, experience and see. So tomorrow morning, I'm going to the airport to meet Lumpur Sujito, and it won't be as peaceful as the monastery. And there'll be sights and sounds and people around, but have a spacious mind to embrace all that. I do find in these situations just staying in the body very helpful, just feeling my feet touching the earth, and get caught up in the sights and sounds around. And it can be peaceful at the airport. So I just offer these reflections this evening.